Hello and welcome to round 3 of the Formula Sim Racing 2020 Winter Series, and we are here at Hampton Downs for 2 races here today. Another nice little short circuit as we replicate the Toyota Racing Series down in New Zealand. And for today I am your commentator Cameron Rodger, and I am joined by Nico Hillebrand.
Hello there, good to see everyone back here.
Yeah, and if you'd like to take us through the track for today.
Right, today we're at Hampton Downs, as you said. It is most definitely a very different circuit to Taronga Park, where we went last week. This track is 2.8 kilometers long, so not that much longer than Taronga. However, it is quite different in the regard that it has a lot of elevation change, a lot of longer corners, but also far more braking zones. So we should be able to see more moves today. So yeah, it has 7 corners overall, and the distance of 2.8 kilometers of one lap makes it for the feature race 26 laps, and for the sprint race 19 laps. So a bit different distances than to Taronga again, but not too different there. As just barely, I think, over half a kilometer or even less than that longer in this layout of the track. Our car, as always, is the Tatuus FT60, as you mentioned, from the Toyota Racing Series in New Zealand. It's a 4-cylinder turbo engine. The car weighs 670 kilos, and that engine puts out 270 brake horsepower, which brings it to a top speed of 250 kilometers an hour, where it pretty much reaches the rev limiter at the end. And yeah, as we have seen already last race as well, and as we know already from the last 2 weekends, we will have one tire stop in race 1, which is mandatory. And I think this all puts together a very nice picture for us to have an interesting race here.
Yeah, and throughout the 2 races, we have 2 different points totals. You've got 35 points for the win in the feature race and 20 points for the win in the sprint race. And it goes all the way down to P20 in the feature and down to P15. So there's plenty of opportunities to score points. But obviously, there's only a few that will be able to eventually win the championship. And as we can see last time out, Peave won the feature race with an awesome overtake around the outside of Janos Brakshock into turn number 1. And then in the sprint race, Brakshock got pole position and just romped off into the distance, which means he is leading the championship by 8 points from Peave. And then 15 points further back is Jerne Simoncic, who had a slightly disappointing round in Taronga, so we will see what he can do today. But we will now jump into the qualifying session, as we are already a few minutes into it and drivers have set some lap times already.
I have to say, last weekend we had concerns about Jerne Simoncic's form. He seems to be right back on it, 18 thousandths behind Janos Brakshock. And at the same time, the complete polar opposite, Peave, 4 laps completed, still no lap. So that's quite a surprise there from the feature race winner of last week.
I mean, they have to be careful because they only have 3 flying laps effectively. Well, they have 9 laps in total, but that includes in and out laps. So if you want to have a 1 lap run, you need 3 laps. You got to go your out lap, do your lap, and then have your in lap. So some of these drivers might be doing double laps in a row to try and get 4 laps, but even then, it's very limited amount of time that you have to be able to set your times. And so far, it is Brakshock leading the way by only 18 thousandths of a second from Jerne Simoncic, who, as you said, is looking a bit better than last time. But the lap times overall are very close. It's half a second for the top 10 or top 11. So that is very good to see. Obviously, not many corners and a car that's all about momentum. So it's very difficult to get big discrepancies in times. But as Jerne Simoncic comes out of turn 6 through what is really a kink, but it's known as turn 7, across the line. What can he do? Can he make any sort of improvement? No, he does not.
And what I do have to say, I already saw this by a couple of people. The pit entry here, like we already had talks about this at Taronga. Again, the pit speed is 40 kilometers an hour, and that feels crawlingly slow, especially when you have people going for the very fast turn 1 right next to you as they fly past you in the race. but the pit entry is insanely tight. So I do believe if people will have a mistake there, they might get very harshly penalized for it. Not in the form of an actual penalty, but in the form of time loss and possibly even big damage.
Yeah, because the pit limiter is actually before you go into the pit lane itself, so it's actually just in basically the middle of the road. So there has actually been some rule clarifications to this event. Well, as with the previous two events as well, to make sure that everyone is staying safe and they know exactly where to go and where not to go. So hopefully the drivers are abiding to that. As we see, we've got Thomas Wack here in 6th place. He actually missed the last race, if I'm not mistaken, so he's a little bit further down in the championship than he would like to be. But he's part of the HM Engineering group, and they've got quite a lot of cars. And someone to actually look out for is Matthew Williams. He's gone purple in the first sector, personal best, which is faster than Brackshock in the middle sector, and he gets himself up to 4th place. Does Matthew. He's still got 1 lap to go if he wants to make an improvement.
I do have to say, he also gets put down a little bit right now because some people are coming under faster lap times. But at Genis Riera, if I recall correctly, last weekend, he wasn't having such a great time. He seemed to be lower midfield, lower midfield. But now, up in 6th place, just 2/10 behind the leader and still going strong. Well, this is now his last lap, but still very impressive form from him today. And quite a lot of pace improvement here.
Yes, very good from Riera. He did well in he hasn't actually raced in the official series, but he did well in a couple of the off-series races like the IndyCar series we did back at the end of 2018 as well. So certainly a good name to be looking out for. And one thing we have to mention is their second fastest lap time is their position for race 2, and obviously we can't really keep up to date with all of that. So that is a bit of a surprise for all of us as we go to the warm-up session between the two races. But now Brackshock is done 2 purples even, and he goes even quicker on his final lap to take pole by 1.5 tenths of a second around a very short track. And with most people back in the pit lane, that looks like it's going to be pole position again for Janos Brackshock.
We still have a few people on the lap, but oh, and I think that he will have to park it in 18th place. Rauno Muru, that he was already approaching his lap limit, but we do have 2 people here that are still going on their lap. That is Roman Jakubovic in 15th and Matthew Tatuus on 14th. Both of them still want to probably improve, 14th and 15th, though you do have more overtaking opportunities here, and Jakubovic does improve, but not by position, sadly. And now Tatuus, the last guy who can actually do a run. We see Vlad Tokarev just quickly doing a little bit of that's like a bit of testing the grounds in the pit entry, and our pole sitter's doing the same. But that's Tatuus here, and no improvement.
Yeah, it doesn't improve. So that is Brackshock on pole again from Jerne Simčić. So Simčić doing a bit of a better job this time round. Although look at those gaps. The front couple are a few tenths away, but behind them it is really close. So I think we're going to get a really close race here today as we go into the feature.
Yeah, we also saw a couple of, through the entire field, we saw a couple of position differences to the last weekend. And I have to say, it's a bit of a shocker to see POP so far down in 10th place, half a second off, so he's quite actually finding himself in Jene Simoncic's shoes from last weekend.
All right, so the drivers are moving now into a warm-up session, so we'll just take a quick break and then we will be back to run you through the grid for the feature race today here at Hampton Downs.
This is Formula Sim Racing. My name is Mitchy Hoyer. Welcome to a track presentation of the Hampton Down National Circuit here, which is host for round 3 of the FSR Winter Series. We are coming around the final turn to begin our flying lap in the Tatuus FT60, and we carry all the speed on a very long start-finish straight. Good opportunity for slipstream play, good opportunity for side-by-side activity. However, turn 1, just a very short braking zone, very late apex, not much space on the exit. hard for overtaking for sure. Into turn 2, 180-degree right-hander, immediately going over the crest into a left-hander, where it is important that you carry some speed, because there is a good braking zone. Into turn 4, 180-degree right-hander, again important the exit, because over the crest into turn 5 you can dive down the inside to that left-hander, because that apex is super late here. Coming out of turn 5, acceleration zone up to the final turn. Very important that you line yourself up here to carry a lot of entry speed, but you need to even more favor the exit speed, as you want to have a good opportunity of launching an attack into turn 1, coming up the hill, going over the start finish line and across the line to finish and complete one flying lap around Hampton Down National. Guys, the race will start today, 15:45 GMT. Stream will go live, and I hope you guys tune in for on-track action.
Welcome back to the third round of the FSR 2020 Winter Series here from Hampton Downs. We are just in the warm-up session as the drivers get ready to start the race here today. And I'm your commentator, Cameron Rodger, and still joined by Nico Hillebrand.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the break. Just after qualifying and now in warm-up, we had another 3 people join actually, so they will be starting from the very back. 23rd to 25th place they will take. That's, I think if they're still in the right order, that's Marek Petras, Martin Brunansky and Indrek Rimets. So that will be quite interesting here. And I'm quite excited, to be honest, to see how the first lap will play out. And because, you know, when the field is very, very tight together, I saw through a couple of these corners, Jonis Simončić and POP already going side by side for numerous corners. So quite impressive stuff is what we're gonna see probably. But I also noticed that there's quite a few difficult zones here, even if they're not that fast, or even if these cars are not going F1 pace, it's still not an easy track to get right.
Yeah, it's a tricky little track, and one thing that's quite important here is the elevation changes. So especially as you come over the crest through turn 3, that's quite an important one, and the hairpin, the left-handed hairpin of turn 5. It's like this really weird blind apex, off camber, late apex job, so it's going to be really difficult for the drivers today.
Yeah, I also think the braking point will be a bit difficult there, because just as you go over the crest, the front end becomes very light, and, you know, obviously you will have an easier time locking the car up there, and especially in the sprint race you won't want that. So I'm really excited to see here where we'll actually see people do mistakes, where people will try to profit from each other's mistakes, as the warm-up is now just ending. And a couple more people are trying the pit entry. As we said again, like very, very tight there. And let's hope that we won't see anything there. But yeah, Pedro Delgado now trying the pit entry as well. And of course, people will try to minimize the distance they'll have to take through that pit entry. And there's rFactor man advising everyone to leave the pit, the grid now. Sorry, the pit lane. And yeah, let's see what we will have in check for this first feature race.
Yeah, so we are back with Janos Brakshock on pole. What a surprise. He is certainly the man of the series at the moment, leading the championship by 8 points to Peo Pave. And where is Peo? He is down in 10th position, so he really has some work to do. However, that all-important pit stop in this race generally plays a part. That's how Brakshock got the win in the very first race, in the feature race in Highlands. He perfectly timed his pit stop and managed to get past Yerny Simičić. So if Peo manages to do something like that today, he could get back up the points. But this is certainly looking good for Brakshock at the moment. However, if you'd like to run us through the grid for today's feature race.
Right, on pole position we have Janos Brakshock, already a quite familiar scene. Right behind him we have Yerny Simičić, who some consider, you know, pretty much a little demigod of open wheelers in rFactor 2. Then in third place we have Tatuus, also a very fast driver who was at the top last round. Matthew Williams, who actually made a bit of a jump to the top from last weekend on 4th place. Then we have Vlad Tokarev in 5th place. Argenis Riera settles in 6th, having experienced a similar jump to Matthew Williams. Then Ivan Leonov in 7th place. Thomas Wach in 8th place. Zoltan Hives in 9th place. And Peo Pave in 10th place. And I'm pretty sure that he wanted his qualifying session to go a lot differently.
Yeah, that is not the best place for Peo to be starting. We'll have to see what he can do. He does seem to have a teammate next to him if the liveries are correct. Because I know last race there were some issues with different people's liveries, and it showed them all racing for different teams. So hopefully they are all organised today. But eventually at the back of the field, as you say, we've got Petras, Brunansky and Remits who have all joined the grid after qualifying. So we need to see what they can do as well from the back of the grid. But it is Janos Brakshock starting from pole. He's got the inside line, but it's not really much of a braking zone down into turn 1, especially as they will be starting from 0 at the start lights. So I have to see what can happen maybe down into turn 2 for these 25 drivers. 20 of them will get points in this race. So let's see what happens here at Hampton Downs.
Everyone's settled in. The grid, well, the grid lights, yeah. Both wrong. Start lights will start shortly. They're starting, and it's green! And that's a very good getaway from Peo Pave, already up in 9th place, looking down the inside, 3 wide, up in 8th already. And at the top there, that's Yerny Simičić off into the grass on the outside. Losing places left, right and center, down into 4th place, but can he stick it around the outside of Vlad Tokarev? Yes, he can, on the inside now, and can barely just hang on. At the front, Janos Brakshock, no problems whatsoever. He's just starting to gap the field already, or trying to start it anyway. But Zoltzuks is right on his tail there.
Yeah, there's a bit of contact in the midfield. I think it was Noah Rivers in the
Oh,
mid-pack.
that's a crash!
Oh, yes.
That's a big crash!
What has happened here?
I think the server crashed.
It might have, but there was obviously some issue further in the back that caused that crash.
I think the crash actually became so big that the entire server was involved. But just before it happened, I saw actually a couple cars on their roof. So, yeah, we talked about turn 5 earlier, and yeah, the server has indeed crashed.
Alright, so we will just go to Be Right Back stream. We'll discuss what's happening, and then we will be back to you. Alright, so just to inform you what's happening, so basically we're going to get a restart for the drivers. So the drivers are just loading back in, and then we will get a restart going. And so basically just it'll be exactly as it was before. So we'll get a 26 lap race, and then we'll be followed by the sprint race afterwards. So the drivers are just loading back in now, and then it'll just be a couple of minutes before we get the race going. So apologies for the slight delay, but it'll only be a couple of minutes, and then we will be back racing. So we will just take a quick break, and then we will be back for the feature race here for round 3 of the Winter Series.
This is Formula Sim Racing. My name is Mitchy Hoyer. Welcome to a track presentation of the Hampton Down National Circuit here, which is host for round 3 of the FSR Winter Series. We are coming around the final turn to begin our flying lap in the Tatuus FT60, and we carry all the speed on a very long start-finish straight. Good opportunity for slipstream play, good opportunity for side-by-side activity. However, turn 1, just a very short braking zone, very late apex, not much space on the exit, hard for overtaking for sure. Into turn 2, 180-degree right-hander, immediately going over the crest into a left-hander, where it is important that you carry some speed, because there is a good braking zone. Into turn 4, 180-degree right-hander, again important the exit, because over the crest into turn 5 you can dive down the inside to that left-hander, because that apex is super late here. Coming out of turn 5, acceleration zone up to the final turn. Very important that you line yourself up here to carry a lot of entry speed, but you need to even more favor the exit speed, as you want to have a good opportunity of launching an attack into turn 1, coming up the hill, going over the start finish line and across the line to finish and complete one flying lap around Hampton Down International National. Guys, the race will start today, 15:45 GMT. Stream will go live, and I hope you guys tune in for on-track action.
And welcome back to the round 3 for the Formula Sim Racing Winter Series for 2020, and we are just about to get going with the feature race. So basically just going to have a full restart of the race, because there was an unfortunate technical difficulty with the server, so everything is back. We seem to have the drivers all ready. So yes, so I am your commentator Cameron Rodger, and joined next to me is Nico Hillebrand.
Welcome back, everyone. Yeah, little bit of a technical slip up there, but I think this will give a lot of drivers a new chance to make good on the start that they maybe botched last time. We saw through the first corner 3-4 wide at some parts in the pack, so yeah, very, very tense already. And I do have to say, I wanted to say this before the start of the feature race originally, but I didn't get to it because so much was happening. The track here, if people are into older F1 tracks, this track here reminds me a little bit of 70s Kalami, because the long last corner that goes around like almost 180 degrees or over, and then this very long
Oh yeah,
start stretch
yeah,
that
yeah.
goes up the hill. It's very reminiscent of that, and that's a very good thing because I love that track.
Yeah, I see that. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, and yeah, talking about Kyalami actually. Uh, I do hope maybe in the future rFactor 2 can bring it as official content because they're going there with the WEC next season as well, and I think the renamed Blancpain, the IGTC or what ICGT, is going there as well. So yeah, maybe the brand new Kyalami could be a good thing for the future as we move into the warm-up session where the grid will be set. Exact same grid, exact same scenario, same drivers, but what we saw a few minutes ago obviously doesn't count towards anything. So this is the actual race right here, and the grid should be the exact same as well. So as we said, in this feature race, drivers need to make one pit stop for tyres, which usually takes about 5 seconds. But as we've mentioned with the pit lane, the pit lane is unbelievably slow. It's 40 kilometers an hour, which is half what we normally have. However, these pit lanes are really tight, and they have this one specifically has a tight chicane going into it. So drivers do have to be very careful, and there's been certain rules being put in place for what drivers can and cannot do. As we have the wonderful rFactor man greeting us as we wait for all the drivers to get on the grid, and then we will undertake a formation lap before we get going with the race today.
Yeah, nothing really gets you into the mood for racing like rFactor man's diamond angel-like voice. So yeah, everyone's settling on the grid now, and I do have to say, what I just had in mind as well earlier. We commented on this last time, but the grid here is actually completely level, so it's not staggered like we know from European circuits. I think this will be, well, this is another interesting factor for the start, because you don't have to close any gap to the people in front. The whole grid is far closer together. And as we saw with POP for the first start, you can gain quite a lot there. And from Yanis Simoncic, we saw that you can lose quite a lot there as well, if you just have a bit of a mishap through turn 1.
Yeah, one thing with having a restart like this is, for instance, just because of the nature of how things work, Puck Ferme would have been reset, so it'd be interesting to see if anyone changed their setup slightly. That's just, I mean, it's the same for everyone. They can all do that. Unfortunately, that's just what happens when we have a situation like that. Also, at the start, obviously, you should be starting in the same position. So if you had a good start, are you going to try that again? Or if someone overtook you, are you going to defend slightly differently? We have to see how things work out. And it definitely seemed that turn 1, not much happened, but it all seemed to happen down into turn 2 and then into the hairpin of turn 4. So as Janos Brakshock brings us round the final corner, we will be starting round 3 feature race. And after this race, we will be halfway through the championship because there's 5 rounds, 10 races, and this is race number 5. And then we'll get a good grips to see who is actually going to be fighting for this championship. Obviously, the winner gets a free license for the 2020 regular season, which is coming up in March. So we've just got about 5 weeks left to go until we start that. But we still have this and 2 more rounds of the Winter Series to see who is going to get that free license.
You really see people working the brakes there. And I can understand that they are, because through turn 1, and I think also not through turn 2 too much, you can't really put any heat in the brakes because it's just barely even braking zones. Everyone's on the grid now, and we're just waiting for the lights to start. Complete silence, utter concentration for everyone on the grid. Someone's still reparking? Nope, that's revving up, and the lights start and go! That was a very quick light session. And this time Simončić holds on to it better around the outside, and that's 3 wide through turn 1. Take it easy, lads. No crashes in the first lap like we had in the first start, please. And Simončić successfully holds on to P2 this time. Can hold on to the tail of Rodger as well. Right on the back there, but we have almost 2 wide down the entire field after P6.
There's a lot of drivers going side by side. If you see one of the HME cars there going down inside 3 wide into turn number 5, someone got booted out on the side there. I couldn't quite see who that was. I think it might have been either Peeve or Zoltan Hives. So I have to see how that works itself out. But yeah, 3 wide. These cars are very small, but so is the track. So it is a little bit difficult to go that wide. As we're now still following Peo as he comes down into turn 1. Can we see overtakes into turn 1? That is really what we are trying to find out, because it's not really a braking zone, and no, he cannot get the move done into turn 1, but can he then work his way to make a move down into turn 2? He's going to have to be late on the brakes, but no, he cannot either. So at the end of lap 1, going to lap 2, it is Janos Brakshock leading the way from Jene Simončić.
Yeah, and Simončić is really trying to keep pace with Brakshock, but I think in these cars, Brakshock really got a bit of a nice feel for it, as he has a slight lock-up there. Don't want to do it too often there, because in this distance we still have, tire wear being a real problem. And it's still a very long train. We have 1 car very offset there, that is Eddie Gustina, so I think bit of a too hard throttle input there out of the corner. Spun a bit to the inside. But yeah, as we talked about, if you want to repeat or, overdo what you had in the first start, Peeve wasn't quite possible, he wasn't quite able to replicate his start again, which I'm pretty sure he will not be too happy about, because, I mean, what place do you want to be in at the end of lap 1? Maybe even 4th place if it had gone on like that, or 9th, and this time it didn't quite work out for him so well, and he's now stuck behind Zoltan Hives, who is less than willing to just hand over his position, I imagine.
Yeah, Zoltan Hives, as we've mentioned before, this is his debut in FSR this series, and he's proving to be very, a very good little talent, and we're going to see what he's going to do. He's under the Netrex banner, so I think he'll be in the Pro Championship with them this year, so you need to see what he can do. New name to all of us. But he's got Pave behind him, and just a note, Jakubovic was the first person to pit, and you can see on the minimap, he's then going down into the hairpin of turn 5, so you lose best part of half a lap or so just from making a pit stop. So when the leaders and guys further down start to make their pit stops, there could be some traffic involved, so that's why you've really got to time your pit stop perfectly.
I imagine another source of possible danger could be, stopping with multiple cars, because if someone would do a mistake at the pit lane, at the entry, I mean, we're already at 40 kilometers an hour at the chicane, but just imagine, because these are open wheel cars, so the wheels can get tangled on things. If someone would get tangled right on, the edge of the wall there and stuck, that's just, when you come in with multiple cars, you block the way for all of them as well. So that's really a very easy source to lose a lot of time there. And at the same time, as we saw last time, you really have to look, what kind of traffic situation you want when you come out of the pits. Do you want, a bit of a more clean traffic? Do you stay out longer, but with more degraded tires? Or do you stay out shorter and try to get the drop on everyone?
Yeah, and as you can see by Jakubović's name in the tower now, he's got a little number 1 next to his name to show that he is pitted. So as people start to make their pit stops, you'll see their number 1 come next to your name to keep you updated with who's made the pit stop. And that's obviously the main talking point of this race, because depending on when you do it, depends if you're going to have new tyres at the end, are you going to have older tyres at the end, are you going to have traffic, are you going to be clear at? And we've seen a number of drivers, especially the ones making early pit stops, making up a lot of positions later in the race. So we need to see what they are going to do. And it seems that all the cars are very close together. I just need to try and see what they can do. Sometimes it's best to be patient. I mean, they do have 26 laps to sort it out. However, they go by very quickly, and we are already on to lap number 6.
Yes, it's quite impressive how quickly the time goes around here. Of course, we have once more a quite short lap, less than a minute if I do recall correctly. And yeah, I don't think that anyone really wants to leave time lying around here. It's very close, especially around the mark of 10th place. You know, that's just one long train, and I imagine that once again, this is going to be a battle of low versus high downforce setups here. Simply because if you go in the low downforce, we have seen here, this is obviously a little bit shorter. As we see here, that's 9th place. It's POP already heading into the pits. And, and you really messed that up.
Yeah,
and that's the danger that I was talking about. I think, what is happening there?
I'm not sure. Gonna grab a replay.
That's another car. That's
So
Rano
let's
Muru
see
heading in as well.
What's happening? So Peo, he's staying right, gets inside the line. Got to brake now because that is the line. Oh, that was a bit weird. I think he was just going to go too far, but I'm not sure what happened. I don't know if there's an issue with his brake pedal, actually. There may have been an issue with his brake pedal, we'll see. But now he comes out.
Or maybe he tried to slow down a bit because he had maybe suspected that he was speeding. Yeah, speaking of pit lane, we had a couple more people that pitted now. 24th, we now have João Gabriel, who's just in front of Janos Brachok. So I think that could be very interesting if he doesn't get out of the way very quickly.
Yeah, this
because Janis Simončić is right breathing down his left leg here.
Yeah, this is part of the what happens with shorter tracks. Yeah, Brachok is having to get past the traffic now. So things like this is what's really going to make the race, although it seems he's staying out of the way nicely. Is the HM engineering car, although Simončić isn't quite past him just yet.
Yeah, he wanted to let him pass out of turn 4 there, I think. He stayed very far to the inside, but Simončić a bit too aggressive on the throttle, just spinning at the rear a little bit, caught it, but still, that's time lost, and that's momentum lost. So, not quite optimal there. Now in P3 and P4, we have Zolt Zooks and Matthew Williams right behind each other.
Yeah,
and
Matthew's
Williams coming
closer, isn't he?
right up, but looking down the outside, this is going to be interesting if he can pull it off, but no.
Yeah, it really tightens up on the exit of the corner. It's really wide and then it just kind of stops. And there's a nice big curb on the exit. So going around the outside is a very difficult choice. It's a very interesting first corner. It kind of invites you to go down the inside. But then, as I said, it just pinches you on the exit.
Oh, with the back marker now bunched them up.
Still got traffic coming out the way. Can Matthew find a way? Oh, not quite.
Oh, that's a lock up. Can he get it down? And he has the momentum. He has the traction. He's almost side by side there, and I don't think that... Oh, he does pull over. Brave move there from Zooks. Very aggressive defending.
Yeah, Zooks is one of these sort of rising stars, if you want to call it. That he has been around FSR since 2018, but he hasn't really reached his full potential. And I've said this in the last 2 races, and then he's dropped down, but he is looking good in 3rd place at the moment. So let's hope, 3rd time lucky in the feature race, he can hold his high position.
I have to say, obviously this straight is a lot shorter than at Taratonga as well. We don't reach the limiter here quite. I just saw Matthew Williams reach just under 250 kilometers an hour, but, you know, so there's still a bit of distance upward. And I think especially because of this entire corner complex, especially for this here, for the braking zone into turn 5, you might want a bit more downforce, because as you have the very start of the braking, you still have some downforce pushing down the car, and as you slow down, of course, that downforce becomes less, which increases the trickiness, of course, of the corner. But I think if you have a bit higher downforce, that initial approach to turn 5, it could help you maybe a bit.
Yeah, it's always a balance that drivers have to get. Do they want to go high? Do they want to go low? Is that Peo back in the pit lane? Yeah, that Peo is back in the pit lane. I'm not sure why.
I think that was probably a drive-through penalty then. And
he stopped. He stopped though, so I'm not quite sure. Who
He's
is that?
in
Who's
the
just
garage.
DNF'd?
That's Peo.
Peo has just DNF'd.
He
So
just came out of the pits and barely missed another car, but went straight on. So I think he might have had an issue there.
yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that. That's quite a weird issue. But that's Peo out of the race. And if Brakshock wins this and gets 35 points, that is a huge mountain for Pave to climb with 5 races to go after this one. And that was Vlad Tokarev in the background taking his pit stop. We're coming up to half distance. We're on lap 12. So it's around this sort of time that most people are going to be thinking of pitting. It just depends. Are you going to go earlier or after your rivals around you?
Riera is now in the pits as well. Just stopping for his tire stop there. And speaking of issues just now, I also saw Pedro Delgado, who was also already in the pits. Not necessarily any bigger issue, but he did have to stay out of the slipstream of the car in front, out of the slipstream of Ranumuru, because his engine was smoking quite heavily.
Sorry, Matthew Williams. He just on the live timing got ahead of Zooks. But then Zooks managed to get it back in the final corner. And are they both going to go into the pit lane? No. Matthew Williams stays out and the car ahead.
But Brakshock is in.
Yeah, Brakshock comes in and another Nitrex, that's Zoltan Hives, comes in. So it seems that this is the lap that these guys want to pit. So Brakshock is the first of the major front runners to come into the pit lane. So this is Simoncic's chance. He's going to have a free lap, as we can see on the overlay. He's the car with the purple circle around him. He's got a free lap, so he's going to be nice and quick. But does he have enough speed to make it work? And where is Brakshock going to come out? Is he going to come out in traffic? No, he's going to have a nice gap as well. So this could be important. Will Jerne Simoncic follow him in? In theory, it'll be the best idea because we have seen the undercut to work, and we are now coming to finish lap 13 for Simoncic. Is he going to stay out?
He's staying out.
Yes, he does. He obviously wants fresher tyres towards the end of the race. The difference isn't necessarily massive, but it is certainly something that you want to think about.
Williams heads in though.
Yeah, Williams gets in, so we need to see where he comes out in regard to Zooks as well. And because of the pit entry and the pit exit layout, you actually can lose a lot of time compared to your competitors. Because
Definitely.
when you're slowing down and then going around the chicane and then even the pit exit, it's not flat out. So there's definitely time to be lost on those areas as well. So let's have a look where Janos Brakshock is. He's P9. He's still going there. And then behind him is now Matthew Williams. But where is people around him? Zooks has gone through and Vlad Tokarev has not made the undercut work. So Williams, he's lost a bit of time to Zooks, but he's kept his track position for Tokarev for now. However, he will need to get these tyres up to temperature because these tyres do need a lap or two to get up to full racing speed, and purple is in the pit lane, so that is Jerne Simoncic comes in.
Noroyvis as well, and Ivan Leonov as well. Eddie Gustina too, so everyone remaining in the top 5, with Brandholm now as well. Everyone's going to the pit lane, and it's going to get a little bit crowded here.
Yeah, it's because it's about half race distance, so that's the natural... because obviously you've got to make one pit stop, so you've got to do 2 stints, so divide the race in 2, so most people are going to go around there.
It really didn't work out for Simoncic though.
Yeah,
Though?
well he's similar.
That was very close.
Yeah, he's I would say he's similar distance, but he obviously has fresher tyres now. Is that 2? I think it was 2 laps he stayed out extra, so we're going to have to see what he can do now. But there is a back marker in the way, although he will have blue flags, so he will have to get out of the way.
Yeah, that's Barbukov, and just now, sorry to interrupt you there in that moment, but yeah, Barbukov not quite aware of his surroundings as it seemed there, because he was getting lapped by our, well, overall leader, if we calculate in all the pit stops, and turned in, and I'm pretty sure for our leader here, for Brakshock, that would have been a very big Code Brown moment, because almost contact, and now he's not getting out of the way, and Simoncic is probably not going to be very happy about that.
Oh, look, he managed to get down the inside of turn 1 as well. So that is Simoncic up. Now he's got clear air to try and catch up to Brakshock, but Brakshock has got an almost 3-second lead, so he actually lost about a second on that outlap. I assume due to being held up slightly by Barbkov, who now gets out of the way, ironically for his teammate, and one of the Netrex cars as well. So is that Zoltsuks? Yes, it is. And has Thomas Vack pitted? Yes, he has.
Yes, that's
So
an insane jump.
Yeah, we didn't quite clock that, but Thomas Vack is now up into 3rd place. He's jumped.
He came from 8th.
Yeah, he's jumped quite a few positions to get up there, and that is the power of the undercut. And you can just suddenly jump to the front, so he's got himself in position now as we go on to lap 17. So there's 10 laps to go, including this one, for Vack to try and get himself a podium in the sprint race.
Oh, P7, P8, Chris Shepard versus Zoltan Heiss and Ivan Leonov. And Chris Shepard, the first one to make it work through the entire corner. Ivan Leonov now getting completely handed down the order. Zoltan Heiss goes past him as well. But very interesting to see there. I think you really do need quite a lot of courage to make that move work. And what has to be said about turn 1, it does look almost like a hairpin that you take at insanely high speeds. But if you look at the track map, it's just over 90 degrees. So I think it's around 110 degrees. So a lot more open than, for example, the last actual corner, not the last kink. But simply because you approach with so much speed, a little bit off camber, downhill, and so much speed, like it's around 230, 240 kilometers an hour that you approach it with. It's a lot. It's just a completely different number.
Did Chris hit the wall? I think Chris hit the wall there on the inside of turn number 1. So he might have a little bit of suspension damage as well, and he's locked up. So the 2 Netrex cars have gone through of Leonov and Hives, and he's now got Riera, who had that really good qualifying, if you remember, coming to try and overtake him. But Chris has managed to make that work. But I'll see if we can, when we get to this straight, if we can see any suspension damage, because I'm pretty sure he nudged the wall on the inside of turn number 1. And his steering wheel
he's holding the steering wheel straight.
Yeah, it looks fairly straight, so maybe he managed to get away with that. But normally if you touch the wall, it puts your toe out a little bit, and that gives you some weird steering geometry. But it seems he's got away with that down in 9th place at the moment.
I have to say though, I didn't think we would actually see something like that in this race. Very unexpected to see someone actually hit the inside wall there, and Roivas just very courageous there, holding on to it. Wanted to look around the outside of Jakubovic, and going down the first dip in elevation, the car actually went sideways and he kept it on the throttle, power slid it through the entire corner. That's certainly not something we see every day.
Yeah, these cars do like a little bit of a power slide, especially if you are coming out of a high-speed corner. So that is something that the drivers have to control. And obviously the tyres don't have to go too far, so it's not really like you're wearing up the rear tyres. But if you do get them a little bit hot, then the rear will start to slide around a little bit. And as we get towards the end of the race, that isn't always a good thing to be doing. I've got Noah Rovers trying to go round the outside, but he's had to back out. But can he get the little switch back down into turn 2? He is thinking about it, but he's actually having to switch to the outside.
Kubovic very aggressive on the defense then. I think Roivas is now just trying to, put some stress on him, like we saw last weekend from Simoncic, very professionally. Simoncic always made these moves, made these feints, and then when, you expected, even we as the commentators expected it, that's just another fake attack. He actually pulled it off, and it was completely a clean sweep for that move. And Roivas is now right on top of him, and Jakubovic must be getting a bit nervous there as well.
We got Matthew Williams trying to go again to get past Zoltsuks, but not this time. And
that's a three-way battle as well.
Yeah, he runs a little bit wide. Well, see, this was the fight for the podium. However, Thomas Vack got ahead of them, and that is someone off. That is João Gabriel, Another one of the HME cars going off into turn number 2, but he is a lap down, unfortunately for him. He was one of our drivers who got through from getting a podium in grid 2, so there is a grid 2, so the maximum of drivers is 25, and there's a grid 2, and if you get on the podium of the grid 2 feature race, then you get into grid 1 for the next race. And he got, I think it was 3rd last time out, which is what promoted him to grid 1 for this race, but unfortunately not going too well. And now we've got Tatuus coming up behind Thomas Vack, trying to get his nose down the inside, but it's a little bit difficult. But turn 1 actually seems to be a corner to set yourself up for turn 2. Now we've got Noah Rivers trying to go around the outside, but can he actually make it work this time? He's trying to keep it around the outside. The rear got a little bit twitchy, but he couldn't quite make it work. But can he go around the outside of turn 2 instead? No, he has to pull back in. So a couple of good battles on track here as we get towards the end of this feature race.
And it has to be said, Norroy was very impressive stuff from him. Even done.
Oh, he's managed to do the cutback. He's managed to do the cutback, got right on the power.
Sliding out of the corner.
And
very nice move there.
You'll have to see how his traction is because he would have heated up those rear tyres a little bit, but it seems like he's managed to make that work. And now,
but yeah, as I was saying, Norroy is actually a bit of a rookie in sim racing as well. I think, what was it? If I got told correctly, he did used to do some stuff on console until he got brought into sim racing on PC-based sims by a certain Geordie's Wires.
Tatuus has gone up the inside, and this might give Williams a chance because he's going to go round the outside of Thomas Vack. Is he going to be left room? Yes, he has left room, so he's going to have the inside into the hairpin. And can he make this work? And obviously Vlad Tokarev is right behind them as well, and Williams has made it through. So Tatuus,
four-way battle now.
Tatuus opened the door, and now I thought Tokarev was going to get him there, but he didn't. So he's going to have to sit back for a little bit longer.
Oh boy, I don't think it's gonna calm down before we actually reach the finish. I thought for a bit as well, 3rd to 4th place, they were gapping a bit away from 5th and 6th, and then they all just close up together again.
Yeah, but this is what the battling does, because Vac lost all the momentum with Tatuus, and then that meant Williams got past, and now he's actually dropped about 10 car lengths or so, which means Tokarev is all over the back of him. He stayed really close through turn number 1. I thought he might have gone for a little dive, but no, he's gone for the switchback. So he's trying to get the momentum over the hill of turn 3. No, but he's gone wide. He couldn't keep his nose in on that occasion, as we only have 2 laps left after this one.
Lost a bit of momentum there, and of course, these cars do have downforce, but at that amount of speed, it doesn't quite kick in as much. Of course, he needs the more speed you have, the more downforce those wings will produce, but at those speeds they don't produce quite as much yet, so they are relying on mechanical grip, and there's only so much grip rubber can give you, even with these Hankook tires. And yeah, I think it's just a couple more laps to go here. At the front it's calmed down a bit. Sabanchich is in 2nd with a bit of a gap to Bragchok. Rodger is having his usual nice Sunday evening drive.
He was challenged in the first the first 3 races of the season, really. He was challenged, but it seems he is the one setting the pace. And is this the start of a championship challenge in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship, the official rFactor 2 Open Wheel Championship that will be getting underway in about 5 weeks' time? And I do believe he is staying at Ghost Speed. So if Ghostspeed can give him a good car, he might be able to challenge the likes of Simonchich, who has obviously moved to Burst Esport, as you can see by his livery. And we now come onto the last lap. We now got Chris Shepherd coming up for 8th place. Got a nice little battle here for the middle part of the points. Points go all the way down to P20, as you can see on the tower by the lighter shade of grey. All those drivers will be getting points today.
We also have a very interesting run here from 8 to, well, even down to 12th place, essentially. Very close together, everyone. And Norrivers is probably trying to line up another driver here, in the form of Janis Riera, who's also trying to hunt down Chris Shepherd. And we still don't know if he has any lasting suspension damage. He did lock up a couple of times and another lockup there, so I think he may be getting a bit of a flat spot there,
Yeah,
which could affect his cornering grip a bit.
well, we got Janos Brackshot coming around the final corner, up through the kink of turn 7 to take another win in this Winter Series for 2020. So congrats to Janos Brackshot, who has taken a massive advantage from Peo Peeve, his nearest challenger, with Peo having a DNF, and that has meant Yerny Simičić has come P2, and then Zolt Sukes in third place. Good job for him getting a podium as him and Matthew Williams got past Thomas Vack with about 5 laps to go, who gets a good result in turn 5. Vlad Tokarev picks up 6th, Hives in 7th, Ivan Leonov in 8th. So the Netrex boys doing good there. 3 cars in the top 8. Then Shepard 9th, Riera 11th, Noah Rivers in 11th, Jakubovic in 12th, Adi Gustina 13th, Brantholm in 14th, Matt Tucson in 15th, Muru 16th, Delgado 17th, Chandra, I should say, 18th, Remitz 19th, and the last point going to Stoyan Barbakov. But the race was all about Janos Brackshot again, who takes another win, putting himself really in contention as we have just reached the halfway point of the 2020 Winter Series.
We did mention the podium finish for... Oh, what is that? Did the finish actually get a bit different here? Thomas Wach was on the podium, wasn't he?
No, Wack got overtaken by
Oh.
Williams and Sukes, remember?
Sorry, yeah. Too much action going on in the entire battle, in the entire race here. And actually Zooks though, we see the gap there, that's 600ths of a second, less than 600ths of a second. I was about to say this, but you were having a very nice flowing talk there, so I didn't want to interrupt. Williams really, up to the last meter, tried to get past Zooks. They were going down the front stretch side by side and crossed the line as such. So, very impressive battle there, and I can't wait for the sprint race, because we'll have a very different starting order there. And I think that will also make for a quite interesting race.
I'm going to see if I can get a replay just before the server restarts, but I think it's about to... yes it is. Unfortunately, we're gone back into the warm-up session. So we can set the grid for the sprint race. And then we will be getting underway with the sprint race for the 6th race of the series. And obviously the drivers here will be set, the grid will be set from the second fastest time they did in the qualifying session. So we will just be running you through the grid in a moment when we know that it is confirmed, once our little tool makes the grid for us.
I think this grid will provide for quite some interesting racing here. And, I mean, it's also playing into the cards of Janos Brackshot, because he's on pole again. That much is definitely sure. But the order behind him is quite different.
All right, so let's take a look. Yeah, so Janos Brackshot has actually got pole position again. So that's 2 races in a row that he's got double pole position, which really shows that he is the fastest. And actually, in this session, his race 2 time is 2/10 quicker than the nearest challenger of Zolt Sukes. And then we've got Matthew Williams, Argenis Riera, Thomas Vack, Leonov, Hives, Peeve, Tokarev, and Yerny Simičić down in 10th place.
We saw this last week already, and we saw a quite good recovery drive from Simičić. But despite that, I can't imagine that he's quite happy about the starting position. And he's now even behind POP, who had this disastrous first race, and who will probably very much be looking into getting a bit, or not just a bit, but a huge improvement over his last result here with this tragic DNF. obviously his race riddled by problems. So I'm really excited to see if these guys will just cut through the field like a hot knife through butter, or if they will actually have a lot of issues, because we saw, especially in the top 10 and at the edge of the top 10, there was a lot of very close battling, and I don't imagine that those battling groups will just go, oh yeah, sorry, I didn't know it was you, please go on through, to those two guys, and they might get caught up in some of those battles as well.
Yeah, I'm just doing a bit of quick maths. Obviously, our result system will be updated later, but for now, my quick maths is that Brakshock will be on 137 points, and I'll just bring up the points table so you can see what we're talking about. So Brakshock was on 102 plus 35 means he's on 137 points. Peeve is on 94, so he will stay on 94, meaning he is 43 points behind. That is pretty much a race and a bit behind now for Pave, so Brakshock is looking in a good position. And then I think his nearest challenger will be Jene Simičić on 110 points. So that means Pave has Brakshock has a 27-point lead, which is pretty crazy, has to be said. But he's certainly been the class of the field, and it's still been a good series as we come into the second half. So we need to see what these drives can do and how they will maybe learn the car a bit better. But it is certainly Brakshock again today who is going to be fighting for the win. And can we see Jene Simičić come up? Because otherwise Brakshock is going to have a humongous lead after this race, although there is only 20 points up for grabs in the sprint race, so we have to see what can happen. But we obviously have 2 rounds left next week and the week after, so we have to see how it works out. Obviously, for a lot of drivers in the midfield, the points are still very close. So drivers wanting to maybe prove themselves to their team or to another team to try and get a seat in the main season championship. Who knows? It's quite a lot to fight for, even for things like that.
Yeah, I think it's this is one of the perfect proving grounds to actually show that you have what it takes to battle with some of the best drivers here. Of course, you know, the reigning champion Simičić, and if you can say, hey, in some of these rounds I actually beat the reigning champion, how about taking me? I think the team that you're applying to would certainly give it a bit more thought than if you say, you know, hey, I'm completely new to this, so these off-season seasons, as you may, you know, they're really something. They're not just free-time activities, though, for Jene Simičić they kind of are, as he's already established here. But, you know, it's also a nice proving ground. It's also just, you know, a bit of a fitness studio, if you may, to keep the drivers from getting rusty over the winter break.
Yeah, I remember Martin Gosby last year. He did quite well in the Winter Series. He actually came second to Jene Simičić, and one of the things that he said was he was basically doing it to test out just his skills over the winter and keeping himself going. Obviously, there are other championships and other sims and things like that, but there's something quite unique about open wheels on rFactor 2. So keeping yourself race ready for them is always good. So as we come into the race, we now have a 19-lap sprint race. So drivers do not need to make a pit stop. They can, but it's probably not worth it because you're not going to make the time back, especially with that 40km/h pit lane speed limit. And as we come onto the formation up, we will run you through the grid for today's sprint race.
Yeah, so Brakshock, he had a very good, well, second fastest quali lap, still on pole position. Then second is Zolt Zooks. In third place we have Matthew Williams, a bit of an improvement for him. The same goes for Janis Riera in fourth place. And Thomas Wack in 5th place, also a very good position for him to maybe attack the podium again. And then next to him is Ivan Leonov. In the 4th row we have Zoltan Hives and Peopiv. In the 5th row we have Vlad Tokarev and Yoni Simoncic, so a very big drop for Simoncic from his feature race starting position. Then we have Chris Shepard and Eddie Gustina. In 13th place we have Nor Roivers. In 14th we have Matthew Tewson. 15th place Roman Jakubovic. 16th Rudy Kuppen. Then in the 9th row we have Dan of Brantholm and Pedro Delgado. Hopefully Delgado will try to get these heat problems that he had in the feature race under control this time. Raunimuru is in the 10th row together with Stoyan Babukov. Then in 21st we have João Gabriel, and in 22nd Arek Chandra. Indrek Remates is in 23rd, Marek Petras in 24th, and Martin Brunansky completes the grid for this race.
I have to say, I always look forward to a sprint race because, as the name suggests, it is a sprint. There's no reason to hold back in any way. You just got to get yourself to the checker flag as quick as possible. You don't need to think about pit stops or anything else. You just need to go out and try to do your best. And one thing that I didn't quite notice in the feature race is this grid is actually kinked. So I do wonder if the people towards the back of the grid can actually see the guys at the front, and maybe even the marshal with the green flag. That is just the nature of this track, and as we saw, all of the action seemed to happen down into turn 2 and turn 4, so they are the points to look out for as we come to the green here.
Oh, we have a couple of people shuffling around, and that is not good. Tokarev not quite happy with his starting position, still not quite happy. I think he also went into Chris Shepard there just now, and he still can't get his car properly settled, so I think we can't start the race there yet. And we hear someone honking his horn angrily. Shepard backing off to be cautious. And certainly a more chaotic start to this race already, even though it hasn't technically started yet. So we're waiting for the lights to go on. Very short lights procedure here, as we know. People revving their engines. And red lights, and it's green! And that's strong starts from people in 3rd and 4th row, and... Oh.
Interesting. There must be something about the start of the race that is unfortunately causing some issues. So we will have to just double check what is happening. welcome back to round 3 of the Formula Sim Racing Winter Series. And yeah, so we're just going to have a restart again of the sprint race, and we'll try and get the race underway again. So unfortunately there's obviously a couple of issues going on, but we will try and get the race done a second time. And yes, so we got a 19 lap sprint race, and the grid will obviously be the exact same. So just like with the feature race, we'll just basically restart it as it was. And what you saw basically didn't happen in terms of results or anything like that. So this will be the actual race that that happens. But yeah, once again, I'm joined by Nico Hillebrand. So the grid is just being set, and then we will get underway for the sprint race. So this is going to be race. Go into the race session and have the wonderful rFactor men. Yes, so this will be the 6th race of the season. So there are 10 total races across the 5 rounds. So we're coming into the second half, and as we calculated earlier, Janos Brakshock will have, we think, a 27-point lead. So it is looking very good for Brakshock.
Yes, and also I'm a smart boy because I just talked and I didn't realize my mic was muted.
It's always good when that happens.
Yes, quite indeed. But yeah. Again, very tight grid. We're setting up for the formation lap. And I'm very excited to see what this will bring, because this race is 7 laps shorter. Accordingly, the cars will also be a bit lighter because they need less fuel. And yeah, this will be a pretty interesting race to watch here, because of course we have POP Simoncic starting a bit further back, and Williams, Riera, very good qualifying positions there for them, and really excited to see how this goes. Hopefully we see another clean start like we did in the feature race, and let's just see where this goes and wish for the best for the drivers.
Yes, so the grid is going to be the same as what we read out a few moments ago. So this grid being the second fastest time from the qualifying session, and it was Janos Brakshock who got pole in terms of the second times by 0.2 of a second, and Janis Simoncic is down in 10th place. So despite being second on the grid in race 1, he couldn't put in a second lap time fast enough to get him near the front, and the points only go down to 15th place, and there's only 20 points for the win. So it is quite a bit less points, but these are all the important points that you need if you're going for a championship like Janos Brakshock, who is slowing them right down as we come to start the sprint race.
Yeah, once again they're trying to get as much heat into the brakes as possible before the start. Especially last time, before we had that unfortunate mishap, long time standing still, and you really don't want to approach the first corners, the first braking zones here, with cold brakes, because I'm actually not quite sure if for the standing start you even have to brake for the first corner, because it's so bloody fast. And some people are still out of position. I think it should be fine now, though. Engines are being revved in preparation for the start. And red lights and green. And I think this happened with less of a hitch then. And 3 wide into turn 1 already. That's already contact. Argenis Riera and Ivan Leonov get it coming together, but they both keep it
Oh, big
away from each other.
crash. Sorry, big crash in the background. I couldn't quite see who that was. I was Random Muru getting spun around in the background, and Yerni Simic has lost a place into 11th place as well. Matt Tatuus in the background there going off. So there's all sorts of jiggery pokery going on through all of these guys. Obviously, when A, it's a sprint race, so there's nothing to hold back, you might as well go for it. And B, obviously, when there's a race restart as well, it kind of gets you pumped up even more. Because you get obviously a little bit impatient. So hopefully these drivers keep their heads and don't sort of take anyone out. But it looks like everyone is actually still going, although I think that's Brunyansky going wide at the final corner. But it is Brakshock who leads at the end of lap 1.
Yes, that's at the same time, we have to look at our two guys who started from a bit further back, and that's POP, just as I was addressing him, and oh, that's a big one.
And there, I have to say, I think there goes Peo's championship, because he is going to be all the way at the back of the field.
That's really not what he wanted.
Yeah, and even if he gets like a couple of points, I think that really is POP's championship gone. Although there is still 4 races left after this, so if Brakshock gets sort of DNFs or a bit unlucky, then who knows. But so far he is leading the race from Tatuus and Matthew Williams, who are both having a really good weekend, along with Thomas Vack in 4th.
Yeah, and I think for the interest of those two, they're still on the tail of Bradshaw here, and I don't think that they would want to be battling too much, as I say, as Matthew Williams obviously looks down the inside of Tatuus. But still, Bradshaw isn't really pulling away as much as he was in the feature race. So, you know, maybe they want to keep it a bit more clean, you know, want to keep it a bit calmer so they can keep up with Bradshaw and maybe even attack for the win here. And I think that's what we would all like to see, because, well, what's better than a 3-way battle? It's a 3-way battle for the lead.
And it seems that Bradshaw has got a tiny bit of a gap, but it's nothing quite as big as he had in the feature race. Obviously, there's less fuel, as you mentioned earlier, so these drivers can push just that little bit more as well. The car feeling just that little bit better. And now we've got Williams coming on the back of Tatuus. He had a little think about it last time, though actually he might have been on the rev limiter there, just at the very end. And he's had to lift off on the exit of turn 1, so that has lost all his momentum that he had. But he's still in a good position right now.
Yeah, we did say the corner closes in a little bit at the very end, so a very tricky first corner that, especially because of the speed that you have to carry through it. And well, we saw a lot of drivers being bested by that corner exit, and now we go into turn 5 with battle for P9. That's Yannis Simonjic just going clean past Chris Shepard. Shepard a bit wide with a lockup, and Simonjic just going down the inside and saying, hello, I'll take this, thank you very much, let's move on. And yeah, through this accident with Peeve, Simonjic was actually able to gain a couple of positions. He went down to 12th place and now he's up to 9th again. So yeah, he's going to try and make his way further up.
It's not doing too bad, but it's going to be difficult for him to get up to P2 in this race. But if he's smart and he keeps his tyres in a good position right to the end of the race, he might be able to get a few more positions. But he is going to need to really do something special in the last 2 rounds to really challenge Brakshock. But Brakshock isn't miles away just yet, so he's still got time. But he certainly needs to get a bit better than 9th position.
Most definitely. And we still got a battle here for P2 and 3. Williams and Tatuus are still very close together. And oh, Williams sideways into the last corner. Just a little bit too aggressive on the brakes there. And that's not going to help him all too much, but he does seem to have a bit of an edge on straight line speed over Tatuus in 2nd place there. I never get tired of this view of people exiting turn 1. Just incredibly exciting to watch.
It's one of the weirdest corners I've ever seen. with the way it's so fast in, and it just really tightens up on the exit. And they put a nice big curb and some grass on the exit as well, just to catch you out if you get it wrong, because it's not continuous radius. It just gets tighter and tighter as you go around. And because it's so wide on entry, you're like, oh yeah, let's just go into this like fourth gear. But no, sometimes you need to get down to that third gear as well.
It almost reminds me of the second to last corner at Malaysia. Because, you know, very long entry and then suddenly it closes up. But here it's basically going, oh yeah, you don't have to brake here, just keep on going.
But can Matthew Williams, he's so much closer this time. Can he do what Noah Rovers did and go all the way around the outside? He's going to try it, but then he's going to run out of room. So he's pulled back in to not lose too much time. And again, he's following here.
Right on his tail, and
yeah, he can't quite make it work just yet, but he's certainly close enough. And as we saw in the lap just gone, if he gets close enough, he can get alongside and make something work.
yeah, I think a lot of cars have that issue there a bit. They get a bit of a slide after they turn in, so I think a bit too aggressive into the corner, so they lose a lot of momentum through turn 4. And
Rivers spins in the background. No, Rovers, where is he? P14 has spun around in the background, coming out the hairpin, so he's lost his places and he's now out of the points for the ground effect driver.
I don't imagine that's gonna be the result that he's hoping to achieve. And again, Williams and Zooks fighting for P2 here, again, like very close together, but it always seems to open up that little bit as they exit the corner. I think, you know, that's really where you notice a bit of the dirty air kicking in, because Williams really has to lay off, because, you know, he just doesn't have the grip to complete the corner there, while Zooks, well, being in clean air pretty much, doesn't have any of those issues.
Yeah, I do wonder if this isn't the smartest thing, because Brackshock's pulled away a couple of seconds over the last couple of laps with them fighting. I mean, it's hard to say if Zooks would have actually been able to keep up anyway in pure clean air, but certainly this is not helping, and we'll be losing a few tenths each time they have to defend and change lines and all this sort of stuff. Well, Williams is now getting very close. He's right in the slipstream. He just nudged on the
wide
limit.
entry. Oh, both of them sliding.
Yeah, Zooks sliding, which means he's going to lose his momentum. But so did Williams, so he actually didn't make it work down to 2.
I heard that jingle song from Tokyo Drift in the background. DK Drift King as Zooks. That's just really incredible car control there, completely sideways, and it stays ahead as well.
Yeah, if he lost that would have been Williams out of the race for sure, with the speed that they enter that turn 1. But he's still got the position for now.
Not quite the normal defensive line you see, but it worked, so whatever. And yeah, we have quite a few battles still going on, and Yanis actually was able to close the gap on Vlad Tokarev a bit, now knocking on the door of 8th place, though he is now a bit away still. It does seem though that he is... Yeah, I think he's running a little bit lower downforce as well, because that is a bit more closing speed than we've seen in the feature race as well, between cars. And, yeah, I just see this now, also a bit bumpy on the exit. That's a really devilish first corner.
Yeah, and again, because we had the little restart as well, that means that obviously again the park firme settings were lost, which means if anyone wanted to go low wings for just because, you know, YOLO in the sprint race, then they could have, such is just the way that it's worked out. So we have to see if anyone has done that, and certainly Matthew Williams is this quick again. So we'll have to see how he can work his way up to turn 1. It does seem like he has to be very, very close to make it work.
Thomas Wack just right behind it as well, while the other two are going for a wider line for Zooks to try and break slipstream for Williams. Thomas Wack is just hanging back there and thinking, well, you guys do you, I'm gonna do me, and if you both hit each other, I'm gonna profit, eventually.
And there's now a massive gap behind Eddie Gustina, who is just at the end of this train. There's a massive gap to Danov Brentholm. They're only in turn 2. So there's obviously been some things happening which meant
Yeah,
there's
that's quite a
now
gap.
which is now there's a massive gap. Although we are already over halfway through this race, coming to finish lap 11 of 19, and Brakshock is leading the way by almost 5 seconds now. And so Yoni Simčić might be able to have a go at Togrev here. Togrev went really wide, coming out of the final corner, and just ahead of them, it looks like Hives is going side by side with Riera as well. So yeah, Simčić has made the lead. Let's go and see. So it seems Riera has come out in front of Hives as well, down into turn 1. So 2 moves at the same time there.
Very nice and clean racing here, and I don't think that Simčić will be quite happy yet with this position. So you already see him looking at the back there.
Sorry, is that Matthew Williams?
Oh.
They're going side by side, coming up towards turn 5, and he's now managed to get himself alongside coming up to this final corner. If he is smart here, he can make Zooks have a bad exit, and turn 1 could be the place where he makes it work. So let's jump on board with Matthew Williams to see what he can do. He's right in the slipstream, and he's gaining quite a lot. Can he get enough of his car alongside to make it work? We've seen Noah Rovers go around the outside here, but he's gone a little bit wide. He should get a tiny better exit, which he has. Can he get it? It's not quite close enough. So Zooks is defending really well, putting his car in the perfect place, and he's got just enough top speed to hold off Williams.
And at the same time, right behind that, while all this action is going on, Thomas Wack and Ivan Leonov are I think they're just, looking at that like a carnivorous animal is looking at a nice steak. They see the time being lost for Williams and Zooks, and they're just really thinking about getting in on that action, but they're not quite there yet. But we saw earlier, I saw earlier that Thomas Wack already looking in the slipstream of those two in front, and I think he's smelling the blood already for that battle, so he's really looking to get involved there, but not quite there yet. And at the same time, right behind him, Ivan Leonov has different plans in form of taking Wack for himself, so...
Yeah, it seems like just on board with Zoltan Hives there, and it seems that again he was just hitting the rev limiter just right at the end, and just with Teratonga, it seems that the straight is just that long enough to max out this car, which obviously makes it a little bit more difficult to form an overtake. It just means that you have to be a little bit more creative with what you're going to do. And now Matthew Williams pulls out as Zooks defends into the final corner again. Williams this time has got just alongside, so he's going to be right in the slipstream, which means he should be able to get alongside, but can he hold it? Can he hold it around the outside? I think that's going to have to be what he does. Though again, he's gone wide to try and get a better exit.
Better momentum.
He needs to get his nose to the inside, but Zooks has blocked him off just about fine.
Outside.
Can he go around the outside of turn 3? Oh no, again Zooks putting his car in the absolute perfect position. And now Williams has dived it into turn 4. He's made a bit of contact. It was a little bit too late from Williams, and this is going to give a chance to all the cars behind.
This is what Wack and Leonov were waiting for. They're all just looking in there, and right on that tail
they've both got him.
Simčić now side by side with Zoltan Hives.
Yeah,
the battle doesn't end.
They managed to both get Williams, though Williams is now coming back into the penultimate corner, turn number 6, as we come to finish lap 15.
And now we have an entire slipstream train from P3 down to Yoni Simčić, and this is going to get very interesting. And Simčić looking down the inside very aggressively, just diving down the inside of Zoltan Hives and just going past. Absolutely clean.
Yeah, so this is what Simčić needs, really, isn't it? These guys squabbling, because he's now up to 7th place. He was down to, what did you say, it was 12th position at one point. And he's now managed to get himself up into 7th. And there's still a few laps left for him to sort out any other positions. And
down the inside again. Oversteered. Giving Argenis Riera one hell of a fright there. But not quite enough for them both to get off the track. And down the inside again, Simčić. And really just no witnesses,
He's going to
no big
be under
process.
attack from Slipstream now, but he's actually managed to somehow get Riera out of his Slipstream. So Simičić, I think, is going to hold this position coming down into turn 1. So that is him up to 6th position now.
And further up ahead, Williams almost hitting the back of Wack at the exit of turn 1. And I think Thomas Wack is really gonna look into, finally get that podium. And it seems that Matthew Williams still has a couple words to say about that.
Yeah, it's one of those things when you're in such a tight train. Do you attack? Do you defend? Do you do half and half? It's really difficult to choose. But it seems that Williams risked it all to try and get 2nd place, but that has dropped him down to 4th, which is just the risk and reward aspect that you have to factor in when going for an overtake. But then, had he not risked it, he wouldn't have got P2 anyway. So it's always one of those things that you have to choose what to do. As we come onto the penultimate lap, lap 18 of the race, we only have one more after this for the drivers to sort themselves out to finish race 6 of the championship.
While all this is going on, Janos Bradshaw is already through turn 4, so he's pulled quite a gap in that time.
Yeah,
but to be fair, there was enough action happening behind him to let that happen. And I mean, of course, like if there was like driver of the day or something, for his pure pace, Janos Bradshaw, but for his defensive drive so far, Zoltan Zux, who just is able to somehow transform
he's got a back marker coming up though as we come onto the final lap. As we come up the hill, the start finish line is right at the end of the straight, and when we get there, we will be on the final lap of the race. Although Leonov is now trying to make a move on Matthew Williams. Could this get even worse for Matthew Williams? He's got the back marker to contend with as well as they come into turn number 1, and he's managed to make that stick for P4 at the moment.
But yeah, I do have to say, there was a lot of impressive driving here, even though the race is shorter, and once again the race just flew by as, Leonov trying to do a very late move there, but the car just losing the grip, corner entry, and
Simičić goes down the inside.
Oh, that's a big one!
Oh, yes, he had a massive slide there. And I don't think he's got the overtake work, but we need to jump to Bradshaw as he comes around the final corner to take a comfortable victory in the sprint race. So he's won both races here at Hampton Downs. So let's go behind to see if there's going to be any overtakes as we come up to line. Zux in 2nd, Wack in 3rd, Williams in 4th, Leonov 5th, Simičić gets 6th place after a bad start, Hives in 7th, Tokarev in 8th. Chris Shepherd already express escape in 9th, Riera in 10th, Gustina in 11th. Rovers, after that spin, gets back to 12th place, so a few points for him. Brantholm in 13th, Matt Tatuus in 14th. Peave gets 1 point, one solitary point, when Bradshaw has got 55. So Peave has a really big jump now, with only getting 1 point in this whole round here at Hampton Downs.
I do have to say though, it was a quite impressive recovery drive. I honestly didn't see him move up that much up the order whenever I skimmed through the field, but suddenly he's up there back in 15th place, so he did gain 10 places in those laps after his accident, and I have to say that's very impressive in its own right there.
Yes, pretty good, but that is one thing that these junior single-seaters always give us, is some good action, some good overtaking, and it generally brings the field a lot closer together than if we are in the full top-tier open-wheel spec that you will see in a few weeks' time when the main season starts. But it looks like Janos Bradshaw might be winning that free entry to the season, as with 4 races to go, he is going to have, by my calculations, about a 37-point lead. So that is a very good lead for Bradshaw, and look how happy he is. So good job to him. No one can fault his driving or his pace. He's just kept it good, got pole in both races, and went on to win both races as well here at Hampton Downs.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, and it really shows. It's very rewarding. He doesn't have any mistakes in his races at the moment, and of course, it's a lot easier. It's a lot harder for others to profit on his mistakes when he just doesn't make any. So yeah, really impressive pace from him, and his strategy in these races seems to work quite well. Gap anyone else before they can attack and force you into mistakes. So yeah, I think also this was another very exciting race here. We got to see a lot of good action, and yeah, glad to chime in this week again, as usually now.
Yeah, it's been a good race, but that is not the end of it. Next week we have round 4, which is actually swapped to Manfield Park because Pukekohe isn't quite ready and released yet. So Pukekohe will change to round 5. So yeah, next week and the week after we got the 2 final races of the Winter Series for 2020. Same time, 15:45 GMT. You'll be joined by myself and Nico for another race there at Manfield. So until then, it is thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.
Auf Wiedersehen.